So we've just received the new MacBook Air 15 into the studio. Now I've been really looking forward to this one. I've always loved the MacBook Air range and they've never done one in a 15-inch size. So we're going to unbox this one tonight. We're going to compare it against the MacBook Air 13, the new M2 model, and also the Pro 14 and 16 to see how this sits between the other models. Now the box has actually changed this year. It used to have a lid, now it actually flips out and actually lifts the laptop towards you. That's quite a nice little touch. So we've got our laptop itself. We've got our MagSafe cable. We've got a 35-watt USB-C as standard because this is an off-the-shelf model. You can customize it with a slightly larger one if you wish. All wrapped in sort of a paper wrapping so it's more environmentally friendly. But you notice that it's actually a dual port, so that's quite nice. So you could literally charge your MacBook Air and maybe an iPad or something at the same time. So that's a nice little touch. As with all Macs, we get our little pamphlets, MacBook Air, safety stickers. And because I've got the Starlight color, I've got the Starlight stickers. That's a nice touch to get the matching color stickers. And that's it. Now let's open up the 15-inch itself. Again, a nice paper wrapping to keep it safe, but it is environmentally friendly. And wow, this is incredibly thin, but feels so much bigger than the 13-inch Air that I've been previously using. Now the Starlight looks fantastic, but you can also get it in the traditional silver, the space grey, or the midnight sort of blue colour. Now I've got the midnight blue on my Air 13 and I do love it, but it picks up fingerprints like crazy, and it also doesn't wear well. I'll show you in a little while, but I've got a few sort of marks on that model. So as with most Macs nowadays, as you open the lid, it will automatically fire up. So we'll set it up in a second, and it does feel so much bigger on the actual deck and the actual touchpad by that Air 13. So whilst that is actually starting up and setting up, I'm going to grab the other models and we're going to compare the size. So we've got this Mac all set up. Now Ventura came with it out of the box on launch day, so that's nice to see. And I've got my other Macs that we're going to compare it with in a second. Now before I start looking at this further and comparing it to the other Macs, I want to just mention that I've bought the base model here. So that comes with 8 GB of RAM and a 256 GB SSD. We've also got the Apple Silicon 2 8-core CPU and 10-core GPU. Now you can upgrade the actual RAM and the SSD, but once you start increasing that RAM to 16 GB and the SSD to 512 GB, you're moving yourself dangerously close to that 14-inch MacBook Pro territory. And that has a lot of extra features. But the beauty of the Air machines is the fact they're passively cooled, they're light, they've got long battery life, but this Apple Silicon still has an amazing amount of power for your day-to-day web browsing, office work, light video editing. Anything that's not fully pegging that CPU and GPU out is fantastic on these machines. So I think don't bother wasting your time upgrading these too much. Get yourself a Pro if you know you need that extra sort of storage and RAM and power. This is more of a light use machine. And now with this 15-inch option, this is a great option for somebody that wants great screen real estate with a light laptop that's going to be doing a lot of maybe work on the machine itself, probably not docked to a screen, because if you're using it constantly docked, you might as well buy the 13-inch. So let's take a quick look around this laptop and I'm going to compare it against the MacBook Air 13-inch. So with these actual Airs, you don't get a lot of ports like you do with the Pros. If we look on the left-hand side, you can see we've got the MagSafe and 2 USB 4 ports. So they are very versatile, but you just don't get a lot of them. And if I spin it around to the other side, you get the headset jack. And that is it. That is the joys of the Airs. Now, it's exactly the same on the 13-inch. You still get the same headset, MagSafe and 2 USB-Cs, but in a more compact package. And if we compare the size of the two, you can see the difference of this 15-inch over the 13-inch. It really is quite a lot bigger footprint. So it isn't going to be as portable if you're going to be carting this around every day. You may want to do the 13-inch if that's the case. But for someone who wants a light laptop, they're going to pop on a desk or on their lap and do a lot of typing. It's nice having that extra real estate. And as you can see, thickness-wise, they're pretty much identical. And as I mentioned earlier on, this is the midnight blue colour, and it does look fantastic. It is a great option, but you will be constantly wiping it down with a cloth with the amount of fingerprints that you actually get on this laptop. And around the ports and a couple of the edges, I've actually taken some of the anodizing off, and you can actually see some of the silver through it, which is a bit of a shame with this model. And I'm hoping, obviously, with this Starlight, that's not going to happen, because I know the silver is absolutely stays fine when you give slight scuffs and marks on it. So opening them up to see the internals, you can see the difference in the screen real estate. Now obviously this screen is a lot bigger, which gives you more usable area. So if you're using it a lot for spreadsheets or maybe heavy web browsing, you'll be able to fit a lot more on this display. So that is quite a nice feature of having the larger laptop. As we move down to the keyboards, they're exactly the same keyboard on any of the MacBook products, but you will see that you've got a slightly wider margin on either side. And then down to the touchpad, you'll see how much bigger of a touchpad you've got on this 15-inch. It reminds me of the touchpad on the MacBook Pro 16. It's absolutely huge. And it is a really nice touchpad to surf around on. Now, one of the biggest changes that we've got with this MacBook Air 15-inch over the 13-inch, as well as obviously the display, is the speakers. So I'm going to do a quick speaker comparison between these two. Speaker test at 50% volume on the MacBook Air 15. And 13. %80 volume. And the 13. So you can hear that the speakers on the 15-inch are much better than the 13, but they still don't get close to the quality of the MacBook Pro 16. Now above the screen we've got a 1080p webcam. It looks and sounds like this. And this is a test of the webcam and the microphones on the new MacBook Air 15. Now obviously as I've only just got these in today, I cannot compare battery life, so I will be doing a full review very shortly, which will compare the battery performance and everything else. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see that. But for now, what I'm going to quickly do is I want to just show you the size difference between the Pros. So here is the 14-inch Pro in comparison to the MacBook Air 15. So you can see that the 14-inch is really quite a lot smaller on your desk. But if we put it side by side, it's quite a lot thicker. But that does allow it to have a lot of extra ports on the Pro over the MacBook Air range. So again, if you are a Pro user, you may be looking at this just for the ports and just for that extra performance. And then if we compare it to the 16, the Big Daddy, again, there's actually not a massive amount of difference on actual desk real estate here, but it is a lot thicker like on the 14. So now we've looked around these laptops, I want to quickly talk about performance. Now firstly, if you're buying any Apple Silicon, whether it's 1 or 2 or Pros or Macs or whatever else, for general computing, these machines are absolutely amazing and anyone will do a sterling job. They are fast, they're quiet, they are cool running with amazing battery life. They work as well on battery as they do on mains, so that each of these laptops is incredible. But I just want to talk about some performance numbers and some basic benchmarks in this unboxing, but in the full review we will go in much further depth in this section. So I've run just a few benchmarks on all of these machines. Now on the CPU side of things, we've run Cinebench R23 on every laptop, and then we ran Geekbench 6. Now firstly on Cinebench R23, which is a 10-minute torture test, and really puts these passive coolers to their limits. The 13-inch and the 15-inch ran very, very close. They're both 8-core CPUs, and they scored very, very close together. The 15-inch scored about 100 points higher, and I'm guessing that's just because it's a slightly larger laptop, able to dissipate a little bit more heat. But obviously against the M1 Pros with their 10-core CPUs and active cooling, these scored much better, in the 12,000 sort of mark, so a much better CPU performance for multi-core. So if you are pegging these CPUs out on all the cores at all points, you might want to get a Pro. But for day-to-day use, these Airs are absolutely amazing. And when we look at the single-core scores of the Geekbench 6, these M2 chips are really fast. And single-core is going to be your just opening of apps, web browsing, and just other day-to-day general computing. These laptops are incredible for that. And as we look at the graphics performance of these laptops at Geekbench 6, which is a good indicator of their relative performance, this MacBook Air 15 is very close to that 13-inch. Obviously, we've got a slightly bigger chassis again and a heatsink to dissipate a little bit more heat, so it will do slightly better, but both these perform very similarly. And if you need that better graphics performance, then obviously you go to the MacBook Pros, whether it's M1s or M2s, with a much higher graphics core counts. And lastly, in this performance section, I want to quickly talk about the actual SSDs installed. There's a massive controversy in the M2 Airs when they released that they were using much slower SSDs. And let's be honest, yes they are. The Air 13 was quite slow compared to the old MacBook Pros or even the M1 Airs. But in my day-to-day use, I've used this 13-inch Air for about 6 months now solidly. It's been an incredible laptop and I haven't noticed the fact that it isn't as fast as the Pros. Now it is an Air. I'm not doing my day-to-day video editing on this machine. This is for general computing and the speeds are still great. Now looking at this MacBook Air 15, it's actually slightly faster than the Air 13 base model in sequential reads, but in the random read, this actual Air with the same SSD performs slightly better. I don't know if it's just a variance in the runs, but either way, both of these feel very snappy and great on SSD performance, but they are much slower in the sequential reads especially than the actual M1 and M2 Pros. So that pretty much sums up the performance so far. As I say, I've only had it a day now. I'm going to do some thorough testing on performance and battery for the full review. But just from my general overview, so far, the performance on this 15-inch is very, very similar to the 13-inch and is incredibly snappy in your day-to-day workflow, which is what these MacBook Airs are actually designed for. So that's pretty much it for this unboxing and first impressions. So far, I'm loving this MacBook Air 15. It's a fantastic feeling machine. It feels great in the hand. It definitely feels a lot bigger than the 13-inch, but it's still very light and still very handleable. But if portability is key, then you're going to want that 13-inch. But if you're somebody that wants that screen real estate, but you don't need all the power of the Pros, this could be a fantastic option. Now I'm going to spend a good week or so on this laptop and then I'll be coming back with a full review. But for now, thanks for watching.